Did everyone have a good weekend this weekend? Good. Thank you for coming back and thank you for being on time. Would the people please call their next witness?
The people call Daniel Reed.
Good morning. Can I have you raise your right hand so I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
Okay, please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name for the record and please spell your first and last names?
Of course. My name is Daniel Paul Reed, and my first name is Daniel. My last name is Reed, Reed.
Mr. Edson, you may proceed.
Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
What is your occupation?
I'm a executive relations analyst with Verizon Wireless.
What is an executive relations analyst with Verizon?
Part of my responsibilities include being a custodian of records for civil and criminal cases, as well as small claims, litigation, arbitrations, mediations, and executive complaints.
How long have you been employed with Verizon Wireless?
10 years.
Specifically, how long have you been an executive in that area, the executive relationship analyst with Verizon Wireless?
1 year.
What are your current duties?
Well, like I stated, I testify to records as far as the civil and criminal subpoenas to verify the authenticity of our records. Are you referring to that specific role?
Yes.
Oh, okay. Yeah, we verify that they're true and accurate records of Verizon Wireless, also that they were captured at or near the time that they were placed, and to also confirm that these are kept in the regular course of our business.
Have you previously testified in a live trial setting related to the authenticity of Verizon Wireless records?
Yes.
Do you have an approximation how many times?
This is probably the 5th time.
Have you previously testified in a criminal matter related to Verizon Wireless records?
Yes.
Do you, sir, have specific knowledge with how Verizon Wireless maintains their cellular phone records for their customers?
I do. Verizon cellular switches actually track the call processing activity for the Verizon Wireless mobile transmissions in the area. The switches then feed that information into the Verizon Wireless computer system, which feeds the information in the appropriate billing system. The information regarding Verizon Wireless subscriber and the dates, times, and durations of calls for each account is downloaded into the Verizon Wireless billing system to generate a toll record, which the customer receives, essentially bill copy. We then print copies of toll records from the billing system.
Does Verizon Wireless use the same methods for maintaining all of the records related to cellular phone service for their customers?
Yes.
Do you have knowledge of the process that's used when Verizon Wireless receives a records request and how that's transmitted to the person who's requesting the records?
Certainly. Our law enforcement resource team actually receives the request, and then we provide the documents in a digital electronic format on a CD, which is then presented to the requesting party.
To the best of your knowledge, the information that's contained in that digital electronic format, can that be printed out into actual paper form?
Yes, it can.
Is that something that Verizon does?
Verizon Wireless does not.
Prior to coming into court this morning and Testifying in this matter, have you had an opportunity to view People's Exhibit 1079, which is the exhibit that's before me here, and I'll come and show it to you here in a moment, but have you had an opportunity to view this particular exhibit?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness, please?
Yes.
Do we have the handheld mic right there, Judge?
It should be in the witness. Oh, here, we have it over here. Thank you.
You've seen it, right? Okay. Judge, with the court's permission, I'd like to ask 2 or 3 questions standing here before I go back to the lectern.
That's fine.
Sir, I've handed you what's been previously marked as People's Exhibit 1079. Do you recognize this exhibit?
Yes.
In general, what is this exhibit?
It includes quite a few records, but call detail records, text messaging detail records, also keys to explain what those records mean. I believe there's also some content as well as far as text. So various items in here.
Is this the exhibit that you previously viewed before coming to court today?
Yes, it is.
You can just leave it right there on the witness stand, Mr. Edson. Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome.
People's Exhibit 1079, is that a duplicate copy of Verizon Wireless records?
Yes, it's a duplicate printed copy.
Those particular records, do they correlate with any particular subscriber cell phone number or target number?
Yes, they do.
What is that number?
It's 858-449-7348.
Do the records that are contained within People's Exhibit 1079, do they fairly and accurately depict the records that are held in the normal and regular course of business by Verizon Wireless?
Yes.
How do you know that?
Because again, that's part of my job. We also, as I mentioned about the number of times I've testified, I've had quite a few more actual subpoena requests, and in each one we would review the records. So this is quite common. It's just a regular practice of my position.
And did you in fact review the records even beyond this particular exhibit? Did you review the records yourself related to this case?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, are the records contained within People's Exhibit 1079 accurate related to Verizon Wireless records?
Yes.
To the best of your knowledge, are the information contained within People's Exhibit 1079 made within a reasonable time period associated with the time period that was requested for those records?
Yes.
Finally, sir, do you have personal knowledge, based upon your review and your background for your particular occupation, for the contents of those records?
Excuse me, the content? What,
Yeah, the information that's contained within those records.
Oh, yes.
Judge, at this time, I would move for admission to People's Exhibit 1079.
Any objection?
No objection.
Without objection, People's Exhibit 1079 is admitted.
Sir, if I could have you just put People's Exhibit 1079 up on the kind of the front of your, yeah, right there. That's a rather large exhibit. Can you just tell us, in general, what are some of the various sections of that exhibit? What are we looking at?
Well, there's the call detail records, so that's going to explain the numbers that were made and received calls to that phone. There's also the text message detail records, so we can see the actual phone numbers that sent and received any text messages. There is also some text messaging content for a relatively small time frame. There's also, let me just view it again to refresh my memory. Also in the call detail records, there's also cell site information, so that can explain what cell site the call was actually pinging off of when the call was made.
Right. Do you have knowledge in your occupation, in your particular position, about how to actually read a cell phone record?
Yes.
Judge, with the court's permission, I would request to publish one page of that document. I've conferred with counsel on this.
Okay, go ahead.
Thank you. So People's Exhibit 1079. I think we're going to try and zoom in here a little bit. Okay, so to your back right corner there, and actually, Judge, may I approach the witness, please?
Yes.
Thank you. So for purposes of the record and for counsel, sir, I'd like to direct your attention to the section within People's Exhibit 1079 that is referring to CDR site. Do you see that?
Yes, I do.
What does CDR stand for?
Call detail record.
Specifically, I'm referring you to page 4 of 8 within that section. Do you see that within People's Exhibit 1079?
Yes.
And then even further in detail, we have on the screen right now a snapshot of some of the page of People's Exhibit 1079 of the page 4 of 8 within the CDR section. Does that look familiar to you?
Yes, it does.
Okay. And narrowing it down even more, I've got a pointer behind you if you want to use that, and I'll have you use the handheld mic if you need to stand up.
Okay.
But a particular call that I want to draw your attention to is one that was made on July 20th, 2012 at 030. Do you see what I'm referring to?
Yes.
So what I'd like you to do, sir, is as a way to educate ourselves about this, can you just kind of walk us through that particular phone call from left to right and how to read this in the cell phone records?
Certainly.
If you need to get down, we have a handheld mic right there. Just make sure to turn it on.
Mr. Edson, I don't know if the jury can see those numbers from where they're seated. I don't believe they can. So
Okay.
if that was your intent, I don't think that that's going to work.
Understood, Judge. What we'll do is we'll make it as large as we can. We'll also talk about it verbally for the jury. For the record, we are attempting to make this particular section larger. Sir, I do want to ask you one additional question. Contained within People's Exhibit 1079, is there an explanation form as to how to read the cell phone records as well?
There is.
Okay. Is that something that you rely on and how to read the different columns related to a cell phone record?
I would rely on that in some circumstances, yes.
Okay. So we've made this as large as we possibly can. What I want you to do, if you would please, is to point to the different columns and then just tell us what they are referring to, if that makes sense.
It does. The only concern is at the top there should be what the name of the column to. I don't know if we can make that included in there, but
Okay.
because aside from that, it's just columns. I mean, I can explain it, but it.
Can you go ahead and explain it for
Yeah,
us?
sure.
All I'm looking for is I just want you to explain to the jury one phone call and just tell us how to read that phone call in the cell phone records.
Sure.
Thank you.
So this particular call is actually on this line here. Now, you wanted me to explain what's going on with this call?
Please.
Okay. So on July 20th, 2012 at 12:30 a.m., the target number 858-449-7348 called 720-648-0000, and the call lasted, I believe that says 18 seconds. It's kind of even hard for me to read. And it pinged off of cell phone tower number 324.
Okay. What I'd like to do now is to go ahead and have a seat for us, please. And though it's duplicative, I'd like you to again go through that particular line now that you have the actual clear record in front of you.
Sure.
That was more just to explain how to read the line.
Okay.
So go ahead, and the call that I'm looking at is again July 20th, 2012 at 0:30.
Yes.
Okay. So what was the phone number making the call?
The phone number that made the call was 858-449-7348.
What was the number that was being dialed?
The number dialed was 720-848-0000.
What time was that call?
12:30 a.m. on July 20th, 2012.
What was the duration or length of that call?
18 seconds.
When you're saying that the call was made at essentially 12:30 in the morning of July 20th, is that fair to say?
Yes.
Is that number when it's actually dialed or when somebody hangs up?
That's as soon as the number dials and connects to our network.
Can you just describe, just in general for the jury, how an out-of-state cell phone that is here in Colorado, how that routes through your network?
So essentially, it's primarily going to see it on inbound phone calls, but because it is a California number, it's going to route through one of our California switches. So oftentimes you'll see at least two lines for a single call, and it essentially provides a temporary routing number to complete the call. It's still a single call, but because it is based in a different state, it's going to reflect that. Additionally, because we're talking Pacific and Mountain Time, you'll also see an hour time difference as well.
Now, I'd like to be clear, that 12:30 a.m. on July 20th, 2012, is that Mountain Standard Time?
That is Mountain Time. That was an outgoing call, so it's not as impacted as if it were an inbound call.
The routing that you just described, does that take a few seconds? Does that add a few seconds to the duration of a phone call?
It's possible. I mean, it's not anything uncommon. It happens all the time.
Do you still have People's Exhibit 1079 in front of you?
Page 4 of 8?
Yeah, do you have the entire exhibit in
Yes,
front
I
of you?
do.
My next question is, do you have information within Exhibit 1079, I apologize if I said 8, 1079, about the subscriber information?
I do.
Tell me about that, please.
Okay. Okay, the subscriber information for 858-449-7348 is listed under Robert Holmes. Would you like me to spell that out?
Yes, please.
Robert is R-O-B-E-R-T. Last name Holmes, H-O-L-M-E-S. At the address of 13310 Sparren, which is S-P-A-R-R-E-N Avenue in the city of San Diego. Sandiego, California. The zip code is 92129. There's also a contact number as well on here of 858.
Time that it was ringing, say, to the other party and things of that nature.
That would include that time, yeah. It's as soon as it connects to our network, so as soon as the call is established, essentially.
And just so we're all aware, the actual vocal contents of that particular phone conversation, you would not have that, is that correct?
No, we do not have that.
In general, what was the time period that you looked at for this particular exhibit for the phone calls?
I would say the days and weeks leading up to July 20th, specifically starting on July 2nd, which is kind of the first calls made in the month of July.
Okay, what about June?
I looked at it, but not in as great detail.
Okay. You mentioned earlier that there was some information contained in Exhibit 1079 about text messages. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
What information is contained within that exhibit related to text messages?
As far as the text messaging, mostly what is available here is the text message detail records, which essentially shows you the numbers that messages were sent to and from. There is a small amount of text content, but as far as text content goes, we only have about 3 to 10 days that we keep it in our system from the time that it's requested, so there isn't as much of that.
In this particular record, what is the text content that you're referring to? Do you have a chance to look at that?
I did, yes.
Talk about that, please.
All right. So it looks like the content that we did provide here stems from Saturday, July 14th, 2012, all the way up to July the 20th, 2012.
In general, what was some of the content of those text messages?
From what I had seen, it looks like it was alerts sent on our system from Verizon Wireless. I'm not sure what the specific type of alert was. It just states My Verizon Wireless.
Okay, just kind of in layman's terms for us and the jury, what are we talking about here? What's being sent?
Alerts could be, if you're maybe approaching your minutes, exceeding your data plan, things like that. It's just a courtesy alert letting you know of something that's going on with your Verizon Wireless account.
So for the time period that you were able to capture contents of the text messages,
Yes.
that's just a matter of days, is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah, that's all we were able to acquire.
Okay, so in other words, if I were to ask you, could you go back to June, May, regarding content of text messages, you would be unable to do that, is that fair to say?
Correct, yeah, like I stated, we only have roughly 3 to 10 days from the date you request it, so anything beyond that is not going to be available.
Based on the days that you do have and the contents of the text messages that you do have for that subscriber target number 858-449-7348, does there appear to be any outbound text messages? In other words, that number sent text messages to someone.
Let me check, one moment. No, they're all inbound text messages to the phone.
Okay. Were you able, in your preparation for testifying here today, to just kind of give a general glance as to the call activities in the months of June and July, the actual phone call activities?
Yes.
Give us your general impression of that.
Sustained.
Going back to the phone call, that 12:30 in the morning phone call, I may
Yes.
have asked this, but I'm going to ask it a different way. The 18 seconds that was related to that, does that include the dialing time, routing that to the actual number?
It basically starts as soon as you hit send on the phone.
Just going to have one moment, please.
Yes.
Nothing further at this time, Judge. Thank you.
Is there any cross-examination, Ms. Spengler? Yes. All right, you may proceed.
Good morning.
Good morning.
I want to start off with the phone call that was made by the target number on July 20th at 12:30 a.m. And the target number that we're talking about is 858-449-7348, correct?
Let me go ahead and pull that page up again, just make sure. Yes, the target number is 858-449-7348.
And when we talk about target number, what we're talking about is the number that you're collecting data for as an employee of Verizon, right?
Correct. The subscriber number, the number that was requested, yes.
And the subscriber information for that target phone call listed back to a Robert Holmes, correct?
Yes,
And that was in Robert Holmes in San Diego, California.
yes.
Okay. And this was a family account that had 4 phone numbers listed or connected to this single account, right?
Let me confirm that.
And are you looking for the other number account data?
I'm looking to see if that's listed on the subscriber information right now. I don't see that listed in here, so I don't know if that's on another document possibly.
And Your Honor, if I may approach the witness, and I'll show the district attorney what I'm approaching with.
Yes.
And this is a content of Exhibit 1079, but I bet it got lost in there. I'm going to show you this document. Are you familiar with that?
Yes, this is in here. It looks like it's the end of the page because they come in Excel format.
Okay, and according to this document, 4 phone numbers listed to that single account relating back to Robert Holmes.
Ms. Spengler, just so the record is clear, you're showing him a copy of a page that's part of Exhibit 1079, is that correct?
That's correct.
All right, thank you.
Yes, there are 4 numbers. One of them has a status code of D, which typically means disconnected.
Okay,
But yeah, I do show 4 numbers on here.
okay. And the number that we're talking about, the 858-449-7348, that number has been in existence since 2006, correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Now, back to the phone call on July 20th. At 12:30 a.m., that was an outgoing phone call, right?
Yes,
Okay. And that was going to a phone number 720-848-0000, correct?
Yes.
Made at 12:30 a.m., correct?
Yes.
And are you aware that the 720-848-0000 is the University of Colorado Hospital Medical Hotline?
Unfortunately, the records don't tell us who that number belongs to, so I wouldn't be able to definitively say.
Okay. All right. I want to talk now about, step back and talk about the request that you received
Yes.
from the Aurora Police Department requesting these records. Now, in order for these to be accurate and true, you of course need to know what was requested by the Aurora Police Department, right?
Yes.
And you're aware that they made a request for all the records pertaining to the Verizon communications servicing that target phone number.
Yes, looks like we have the request here.
And that includes billing information, subscriber information, correct?
It says okay. The subscriber information, including associated number on the account, incoming and outgoing call detail to include the cell sites, and text message activity reports from May 22nd, 2012 through July 20th, 2012. Did you want to know the additional items?
Well, the information requested by the Aurora Police Department had a time limit on it of May 22nd, 2012 to July 20th of 2012. Is that right? Is that what you just read?
Yes, for that information, correct.
Okay. And then in response, Verizon did provide a number of documents, and I just want to talk about the content of those documents in more detail.
Okay.
Verizon did provide, as we talked about, subscriber information, right?
Yes.
Verizon did include the incoming and outgoing call detail.
Yes.
That's also known as CDR,
Correct.
and that it can include cell site information.
Yes, it can.
And that includes the phone activity, including incoming phone calls,
Yes.
voicemails that are left,
It'll show the call was forwarded to voicemail.
with an indication of an F.
That's correct.
That would be within that chart that you were shown earlier.
Yes.
Will also include activity of outgoing phone calls.
Yes.
Also include text message activity.
Yes.
And the text message activity that Verizon was able to provide is actually greater in time than the text content that Verizon was able to provide. Is that right?
Correct. As far as just the, like I stated earlier, the numbers sent to and from, yes.
Okay. So in terms of text message activity, numbers sent to and from, that spans from May 22nd to July 20th.
Let's see.
And it looks like you're referring back to Exhibit 1079 again?
Correct. Yeah, the text message details, as far as that's concerned, was, looks like the May 22nd, 2012 through July 20th, 2012.
And just to be clear, the Aurora Police Department, when they made their request, requested records back to May 22nd to July 20th, right?
Yes.
And so that's responsive to their request, right?
Correct.
And then in terms of the actual content of the text messages, that's limited to that 10-day time period between July 10th and July 20th. Is that right?
Let me double check the exact time frame on that again. Yeah, you are correct. July 10th through July 20th.
Okay. And that's because Verizon doesn't keep text content longer than approximately 10 days.
Yes.
And then the RTT tower data, range to tower data, that was only available through Verizon from July 12th to July 20th, is that right?
Yes, that's what I show here.
Okay. And then the IP destination report, so that would be any web activity or IP addresses associated with internet activity. That dates back 60 days, correct?
Let me double check.
And again, you're referring to People's 1079?
Yes. Yeah, I apologize. I'm not, I'm sure it's in here, but it's quite voluminous. I'm not seeing it right here, so I don't, want to provide you the incorrect answer as far as the IP records.
Okay, okay. And just to talk about what's contained in 1079, it's not just that call activity and the text messages, but there's also volumes of internet activity that was taking place on the phone. Is that right?
Yeah, it does look like there are some IP addresses here, so that would be data activity.
Okay. Now I want to talk about the text message activity that's reflected in 1079. And I have copies for you, so it's a bit easier for you to look at this information.
Okay.
Yes. And again, these are copies of pages.
In looking at that, we don't see any text activity on May 29th, is that right?
No.
No, we don't see any.
Yeah, sorry, no, there is no text message activity.
And no text message activity between June 3rd and June 10th?
That's correct. There's no text activity from June 3rd through June 10th.
No text activity between June 12th and June 15th?
That's also correct.
No text activity between June 20th and 21st?
Yes, that's also correct.
And June 23rd to the 25th?
Yes, that's also correct.
And July 1st?
Yes, there's nothing on July 1st.
And July 3rd through July 4th?
Yes, that's correct.
And July 9th through July 10th?
Yes, that's correct.
And July 12th?
That is also correct.
July 15th? No text activity at all that day?
That is correct as well.
And no text activity at all July 17th through the 18th?
Yes, that's correct.
And between May 22nd and the time of James Holmes' arrest on July 20th at about 12:40 a.m., we're talking about 34 entries of text activity. Is that right? And I did provide numbers on the copy I showed you. You're
Yeah.
welcome to check my work on that.
Let me just look at one other thing here. Yes, that's correct, 34.
And you indicated that all of the text messages were incoming. There are actually four outgoing text messages during that time frame. If you'll look at June 1st,
Yeah, earlier I was referring to the text message content records as far as what was being all inbound.
I see. So between July 10th and July 20th, there were no outgoing text messages.
Correct.
Although, if you look on July, okay, and then looking at June 1st, we've got one or two outgoing text messages to the same phone number, correct?
Yes, would you like me to read the details on that for you?
Let me just know if I've got the phone number correct. 970-443-9340.
That's correct.
And then we don't have another outgoing text message until July 8th. Is that right?
That's correct.
Okay. And the record reflects two outgoing texts, one at 8:54 PM and one at 9:17 PM,
That's correct.
and both to the same number,
Yes, that's correct.
and that's that same number I read earlier, 970-443-9340.
That's correct.
Okay. Otherwise, the incoming text messages, particularly in the month of July, are either spam or the data alerts from Verizon.
That does appear to be the case, yes.
Okay, and a data alert would occur when there's an increased use of a device, is that right?
Yes, as I stated earlier, that alert could be data, it could be voice, that I can't definitively say what type of alert, only that it is a Verizon Wireless alert.
Your Honor, if I may approach the witness.
Yes.
I'm now going to approach with what's been marked as DTR1. And I've already shown the district attorney, and I don't believe they have any objection to its submission. Ticket number is on the back of the exhibit.
Okay.
I'll hand that to you. Now, that's a call detail record for the target number 858-449-7348, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And this call data record dates back to May 22nd, or provides the data between May 22nd and July 20th, is that right?
That was the original request. It looks like the first call we show on what you've provided is May 27th.
Right. And that's a record that's provided by Verizon.
Yes.
Okay. And Judge, at this time, I'd ask for admission of defendant's TR1, the call data from May 22nd through July 20th.
Is the information on this exhibit contained in Exhibit 1079 or no?
No, not exactly.
Okay, do the people have a position?
No objection.
All right, without objection, Exhibit D-TR-1 is admitted.
And the difference between the call data record contained in People's 1079 and what I've handed you as Defense Exhibit 1 is that what's contained in 1079 only dates back to July 20th.
Okay.
Does that sound right? And you're checking 1079?
Yes.
Ms. Spengler, I'm sorry, did I understand you correctly? Did you say that the difference is that the data record contained in People's Exhibit 1079 is that your exhibit, is that what's contained in 1079 only dates back to July 20?
I meant to say June 20.
Okay.
Yeah, I showed June 22nd of 2012 on here.
Okay. So referring to the call data report, Defense Exhibit 1, again, this call data includes the phone activity, which can include the incoming and outgoing phone activity, right?
Yes.
Right. But that's not all. This also reflects when the user uses data services or web services through Verizon on their phone, correct?
Yes.
And that's reflected with a pound 777?
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. So this document contains more than just incoming and outgoing phone calls.
Yes.
And this document is 7 pages, and so obviously small chunk of that People's 1079 is contained in that call data report in 1079, right?
Yes.
And even within this call data, we don't see any activity on the phone between May 22nd and May 26th. Is that right?
No.
No activity at all between May 29th and June 2nd?
No.
No activity at all on June 4th?
No activity on June 4th.
June 8th through June 10th?
That's correct.
June 12th through June 15th?
That's correct.
June 17th?
That's correct.
June 19th through June 21st?
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that part.
June 19th through June 21st?
Yes, that's correct.
And then we see an increase of activity June 23rd.
Correct.
See no activity at all June 24th.
That's correct.
See an increase in activity on June 26th and June 27th.
Yes.
Significant increase on June 27th in particular and June 28th.
Yes, there's an increase.
And then no activity at all July 1st.
That's correct.
July 3rd, no activity at all.
That's correct.
July 7th through 8th, no activity at all.
That's correct.
July 10th, no activity at all.
That's correct.
And July 15th through the 16th, no activity at all.
That's correct.
And because this comes up a few times in the records, I did want to talk about out-of-state inbound calls reflecting twice within the records.
Yes.
You explained that earlier. So if we see an inbound call reflected at, let's say, 1:25 p.m. and 2:25 p.m., and it's the same number, you're telling us that's the same phone call?
Yeah, it's usually going to be the 1 hour difference on an inbound call. You will see under the dial digit number field, though, on one of the lines, a different number, and that's what we call the routing number, and it's just a temporary number assigned to complete the call on our network.
Okay. Okay. Your Honor, if I may have a moment.
Yes.
I have no further questions. Thank you.
Do you have any redirect, Mr. Edson?
Very briefly, if I may.
Yes.
Sir, you were asked some questions about, within the records, some of the data activity, specifically internet activity on the phone. You remember being asked about that?
Yes.
Would your records reflect any sort of data activity that someone uses on their phone from a public Wi-Fi network or a personal Wi-Fi network?
If they were connected through a Wi-Fi network, it should not reflect that as a record because the data would be being utilized through that Wi-Fi network.
What about, like with an iPhone, you're familiar with iPhones, correct?
Yes.
What about something like an iMessage through Apple products? Would that be recorded in Verizon records?
An iMessage would just be recorded as a data. It's not a text message because it goes through the data network.
Okay. So in other words, the web activity that you're referring to on the Verizon records, that's only through web activity that was conducted through the Verizon network. Is that fair to say?
Yes.
And would not include any activity that may have been used on a different internet source, like a public Wi-Fi or a personal Wi-Fi at one's home?
Correct.
Okay. Just going to have one moment, please.
Yes.
Thank you. Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
Is there any recross? No. All right, it looks like the jury may have one or more questions, so if you could wait for us, please. Thank you. Counsel, please approach. Sir, the jury has submitted some questions, and based on the rules of evidence and other applicable rules of law, I have concluded that these are appropriate, and so I'm going to ask you these questions now. The first question is, from what physical location was the 12:30 a.m. phone call made on July 20th, 2012, if you know from the records?
Let me go ahead and take a look at that. I know the cell site number was 324. What I'm doing is reviewing. There should be a cell site key in here that explains the actual address for that tower.
And you're reviewing Exhibit 1079, is that correct?
Yes, that's correct. I apologize. I don't see the actual key that tells the address. So at this time, the only thing I could tell you was that was on cell site number 324.
Okay, the next question is, can you tell from the records if the call originated in Colorado?
Well, the switch that's called the network element name all the way left is Clinton MTX01, which is based off of the towers that we would have pulled. But again, I don't have the cell site key record to give you a definitive location on that, aside from telling you that it's number 324.
So let me ask the question again. The question is, can you tell from the records if the call originated in Colorado?
Because I don't know all the switches and cell towers offhand, I can't tell you that.
All right, the next question is, does data include email?
It could, yes. That's data.
Are there any follow-up questions, Mr. Edson?
Just have 1 moment, please.
Yes.
No, thank you.
Any follow-up questions, Ms. Pengler? All right. Thank you, sir. May this witness be released from his subpoena, Mr. Edson?
Yes, Your Honor.
Any objection, Ms. Pengler? All right, sir, thank you.
Thank you. I've left the documents up here as well.
Mr. Orman, call your next witness, please.
Kelly O'Connor, Your Honor.
Do you want to take back these exhibits, Mr. Orman, or put them on the top shelf there? Thank you. Good morning.
Good morning.
Could I have you raise your right hand, please, so I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm on a penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
I do.
All right, please be seated. Could you please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names?
Kelly O'Connor. Kelly, Kelly. O'Connor, Oconnor.
Mr. Orman, you may proceed.
Thank you. Ma'am, I want to ask you about July of 2012. What was your job back then?
Director for Information Technology at University of Colorado Health.
Can you please tell the ladies and gentlemen of the jury what University of Colorado Health is, and if you can, just sort of explain how that might be different than University of Colorado Denver?
Of course, the University of Colorado Health is the health system, so the hospital system. University of Colorado Denver is the School of Medicine component.
Even though they're both government entities, would it sort of be like related corporations with separate structures?
We're affiliates, that's correct.
As your job of in charge of data at the hospital, would you consider yourself back then the records custodian for records relating to phone calls and similar issues at the hospital?
Correct.
Did you have access and oversee how all those records were kept?
Yes.
I'd like to ask you about the phone system in general at CU Hospital. Is it okay to call it CU Hospital?
University of Colorado Health, yeah.
All right. How about University Hospital?
That sounds good.
Okay, so at University Hospital, was there a main number?
Yes.
What was that number?
720-848-0000.
So let's say I wanted to call a hospital and like talk to someone in a cafeteria about the special at the hospital cafeteria. What number would I call?
You would call that, pardon me, that main number?
And if I wanted to call and talk to the trauma center, what number would I call?
You may call that main number.
So basically, any phone call to the hospital goes to that number.
Yes, unless they have a direct dial number, but typically people will call that main number.
Is it answered by a person or one of those phone tree things where, press 7 for the cafeteria?
If there is a hospital operator available, it'll be answered by a live person. If they're not, you'll have a recording saying, "One moment, please."
And then what?
You'll hear music until a hospital operator comes on and get your call.
So there's always a hospital operator.
Absolutely.
Did the University Hospital phone system that you oversaw back then keep records of incoming phone calls to that general number for the hospital?
Yes.
In what way did it keep records? Did it keep an audio recording of the records?
It keeps an audio recording if what we call ANI, the automatic number identifier, is passed along by the carrier. We also keep record of that.
Would you keep a record of the time a phone call was made?
Yes.
The length of the phone call?
Yes.
And the phone call, the number, if it's available, that called in?
Yes.
Did you look for any phone calls in your system from a particular California number, 858-449-7348, during the time period of July 19th through July 20th of 2012?
Yes.
When did you do that?
I believe it was on the 22nd.
Did you find any calls?
Yes.
And was that part of the business records of your entity?
Yes.
Your Honor, may I approach with what I've marked for identification as People's Exhibit 1093A and 1093B, and I have shown these to counsel.
Yes. For clarification purposes, ma'am, when you said on the 22nd, are you referring to July 22nd of 2012?
Yes, sir.
All right.
What is 1093A?
1093A is a CD of the audio recording that was obtained.
And is that an accurate record from the system maintained in the normal course of business by University Hospital?
Yes,
How do you know that?
because I pulled it, and it's on our system, and it's right here on the CD.
And 1093B, what is that?
That's the information that provided us the data of the number that called into our main number from our call accounting system.
And is that something that you pulled that was kept in an ordinary course of business as part of University Hospital's business?
Yes.
Your Honor, I move for the admission of 1093A and B.
Is there any objection to what really is P-TR-1093A and P-TR-1093B?
No objection.
All right, without objection, both exhibits are admitted.
If we could please publish 1093B. And can we zoom in on that top part there with the information? Now, see, there's a microphone up there, like a Phil Donahue type handheld microphone. And behind you is two little flagpoles that I taped together as a pointer. Could you please tell us what this record is and what it shows?
Yes, this information was provided from our call accounting system, and the call date range is the date that I put in order to pull the data,
Which is what?
7/19/12 to 7/20/12.
Okay, now at the top it says number dialed by UCH extension. What does that mean?
Well, I used a template. We had several templates, but I can manipulate the criteria that is put in there. So I manipulated the criteria to get the incoming dial number, but I did not change the name of the template.
So it really could have said, should have said number dial 2?
Correct.
Okay. So if you can tell us then, what is this information below the dates?
Here, I asked it to include any number that was the 858-449-7348, including incoming calls only for that number.
And then what does it show?
It shows that a call came in at 12:31 a.m. on 7/20/12. The Annie was this number here.
And what did you just say that number meant?
This is the incoming, this is the number that called, the incoming.
Like when you see a caller ID on your phone?
Correct.
Okay. Please continue.
The number of minutes, and with this system, it will only register if it is 0.8 seconds. So if somebody were to call and it was 2 seconds, it wouldn't have registered, so it had to have been 0.8 seconds, and it was no cost to
What
the
does that
hospital.
mean?
Typically, if I was doing something that was long distance related, it would say the cost, but typically incoming, we're not going to see that.
And then over just at the left, it says PBS extension. What does that mean?
That's that denotes the station that the hospital operator was using that evening.
Thank you. You can take your seat again and turn off the microphone. I want to ask you a couple questions about 1093A. Is that the entire phone call,
Yes,
start to finish?
yes.
Your Honor, at this point, I'd like to play 1093A.
You may?
Thank you.
Oh, sorry.
This is Dan. How may I help you?
Did we get I don't know if we got the whole thing. If we could, it's very short. If we could just play that again from start to finish so we make sure we get the whole thing.
Any objection, Mr. King?
Good evening, University of Colorado Hospital. This is Dan. How may I help you?
I have no further questions, Your Honor. Thank you.
Any cross-examination?
Good morning.
Ma'am, you said, excuse me, I should probably wait till I get behind the microphone here. You said that this is a general extension for University Hospital itself. Is that right?
It's the main number to University Hospital.
It's the switchboard number, right?
Correct.
And you said that that would be the number that people would call to contact anyone virtually at University Hospital unless you had the direct dial number.
That's correct.
Now, this call went through basically after midnight, is that right?
Correct.
I'm assuming that most of the folks at University Hospital, or a lot of them, those direct dial numbers may not be answered.
Correct.
If they're, outpatient services, for example, that would operate during normal business hours.
You would still be able to dial, but you would get a menu system and you wouldn't get a live person. That's correct.
So in order to get a live person, you would have to call the switchboard number because there is a switchboard operator, a live human being, during the evening hours. Is that right?
They're staffed 24/7, and if somebody did call a number that was not staffed, so for example, an outpatient service, then the option that they're given after hours will get them to the hospital operator.
I see. And do you know whether or not the voice we heard on that recording was a live operator answering the phone or whether it was a voice recording?
It was a live operator.
Thank you, ma'am. That's all I have. Thank you, Judge.
All right, thank you. Any redirect, Mr. Orman?
Thank you. If the phone number from California had dialed any direct number at your hospital. Would your search have picked that up?
Yes,
So this was the only phone call from that number for that time period?
that's correct.
Thank you. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Any recross, Mr. King?
No.
And it doesn't look like the jury has any questions. May this witness be released from her subpoena.
Please, Your Honor.
Is there any objection?
None.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Thank you.
Call your next witness, please.
The people call Theodore Maples.
Good morning, sir. Could I have you raise your right hand for me, please, so I can administer an oath? Do you solemnly swear or affirm under penalty of law that the testimony you're about to give will be the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth?
Yes, sir, I do.
Okay, please be seated. Please tell us your full name and spell your first and last names.
Theodore Maples Jr., Tatodore, Maples, M-A-P-L-E-S. I'm a
Right.
junior.
Sorry, thank you. I'm going to ask you to pull the microphone closer to you.
In the winter months in San Angelo, Texas.
Do you come to Colorado for the summer months?
Yes, ma'am, we do. We come up here and we volunteer different places.
In the summer of 2012, were you spending the summer here in Colorado?
Yes, ma'am, at Briars Canyon shooting range,
Where,
Hot Sulphur Springs, near.
and, I'm sorry, and what did you do up there?
Well, we took care of the little campgrounds, and we also took care of the shooting range. We replaced the backboards and just generally done little repairs and watched over the range.
Was that a volunteer job?
It was volunteer, strictly volunteer.
Do you know who runs the Byers Canyon shooting range?
It's Colorado Division of Wildlife, or Parks and Wildlife now.
Is it a range that anybody can go to?
It's free range. Yes, ma'am, it's free range.
Is there much supervision at that kind of range?
Not much at all, little bit. I mean, we would drive in there periodically at different times and check the backboards and check things like the targets.
Did you see people who came to use the range?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Now, you said that the Byers Canyon Range, it's near Hot Sulphur Springs.
Yes, ma'am.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
You may.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 4742. Do you recognize this?
Yes, ma'am. Off of Highway 40, Yeah.
Does this fairly and accurately appear to be a map that, of parts of Colorado?
Yes, ma'am. I think so.
Your Honor, I'd move for the admission of People's Exhibit 4742.
Any objection?
No.
All right, without objection, P-TR-4742 is admitted.
Oops. May I publish that, Your Honor?
Yes.
Could I have 4742 up, please? Mr. Maples, looking at this map, can you identify on this map roughly where Hot Sulphur Springs is?
Well, it's right up there where about the area there where you've got that, I guess that's a A, the little symbol there by the interstate, the Highway 40 highway sign.
And is
Yes,
Hot
40.
Sulphur Springs on Highway 40?
Yes, ma'am. It's back to the east just a little bit, the little town of Hot Sulphur Springs is. And
Is the Byers Canyon shooting range also on Highway 40?
yes, ma'am. It's, if you were going back to the west, it'd be on your right-hand side.
Your Honor, may I approach the witness?
Yes.
I'm going to show you what's been marked as People's Exhibit 4830. Do you recognize what is in that photograph?
Yes, ma'am. Yeah, that's the range we took care of during the summer of 2012.
Does this photograph fairly and accurately represent what the range looked like?
I think so.
Your Honor, may I move for the admittance of People's Exhibit 4830?
Any objection?
No.
Without objection, P-TR-4830 is admitted and may be published.
Could I have 4830 up, please? Now, Mr. Maples, in looking at this, I see Highway 40 and then I see some just sort of perpendicular lines off of that. Can you explain what we're looking at in this photograph?
Well, the view to the front far left is the pistol range. The next little area you see there is shotgun range, and then the next one is 22 range, and then the rest of them are rifle range. The one down at angle is a handicap range. It's a handicap range.
So if a person was at the range shooting, they would be shooting towards what is the top of the photograph?
They'd be shooting that direction, yes, ma'am.
And then this allows people with different kinds of firearms to go on different lines to shoot?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. When you were working at the range, would you monitor people or see the people who were shooting on the different lines?
We did at times, and if somebody was doing something wrong, we asked them to leave.
Do you recall at some point in the summer of 2012 a person coming to the range who looked different than the people you normally see at the range?
Yes, ma'am, we did.
Can you describe what that person looked like?
The only thing I remember is the orange-red hair really set out.
What color skin did he have?
It was light complected, white.
And white?
Yeah, Caucasian.
Do you recall what kind of build he had?
I think just medium build.
But you recall the hair?
I recall the hair.
Do you recall when you first saw this person come to the range?
Yes, ma'am, I think so.
When was that?
Well, he was on the pistol range, and then he later moved, that same day, he moved to shotgun range.
Do you recall what month that was?
No, ma'am, I don't for sure.
When do you estimate that you first saw this person up there?
It was probably sometime in June, but I don't really, it's been so many years, I don't remember.
Do you recall whether it would be early June or late June?
No, ma'am, I don't.
The first time that you saw him, what drew your attention to noticing what lines he was on and where he was shooting?
I guess it was the red hair, the orange colored hair. You know, if he hadn't had it there, it'd just been like anybody else. But he said that really flagged us, to see that there.
Do you have any idea of how long the person with the red hair stayed on the range the first time that you saw him there?
No, ma'am, maybe a couple of hours or something like that. Could have been a little longer.
Did you ever see that person return to the range again?
Yes, a little while later, he'd come back out there.
Do you have any idea of how much later?
It's probably at least a couple of weeks. I don't know, a week or two. I'm not real sure.
When the person came back again, did they still have the red hair?
Yes, ma'am. Still had the red hair.
Do you recall where that person shot that day, or what kind of firearms?
Shot at the pistol range, and then he moved down to rifle range.
Do you remember what kind of a firearm he was shooting at the rifle range?
Yes, it was like an AR-15, that style rifle.
When you saw the person at the shotgun range, do you recall, what kind of firearm that was?
It was like a tactical shotgun, or home defense one. It's a short barrel, a sawed-off shotgun.
Not the kind you would use to hunt with?
No, ma'am.
The really long?
Not for bird hunting or anything like that.
Did you ever speak with him?
I did not. My wife did.
Were you with your wife
Yes,
when you approached him?
yes.
And what did he say?
You're asking what
What did the
person
defendant
said?
Yes, what did the person say?
I heard him say that,
Hold on.
okay.
With that clarification, are you still objecting to hearsay?
Yes.
All right. Would counsel please approach? All right, the objection is sustained. Ms. Pearson, how many more questions do you have for this witness?
Just a few.
Just a few more? Okay.
Mr. Maples, without talking about what this person said, did you and your wife approach the person with orange hair on the range?
Yes, we did,
And where did you approach him? Where was he at the time?
on the rifle range.
Looking at this map up here, which end is the rifle range?
It'd be to the view in the front of, excuse me, it's the right hand, down the right hand. He was down toward the end of the range. I don't remember exactly which one.
Do you recall the second time that you saw the person with orange hair, how long he was at the range?
Probably at least a couple hours. I'm not too sure. We didn't stay around. We left.
Now, do you recall at some point talking to an FBI agent in July of 2012 about what you saw at the range?
Yes, ma'am, I do.
And do you recall telling them that you believed you had first seen this person at the range somewhere either in the end of June or the 1st of July?
I think so.
Do you recall further telling them that the second time you saw him, you thought it was about a week later?
I think it was a week.
One moment, please. Well, that was bound to happen. One second. Thank you, Mr. Maples.
Wait, hold on, sir, hold on
Oh,
just a second. There may be some questions by Mr. Kay. Mr. Kay, do you have any questions?
No, he can go. That's
And there are no questions by the jury. Okay, thank you, sir. May he be released from his subpoena, Ms. Pearson?
He may, Your Honor.
All right, any objection?
None.
Okay, thank you. All right, folks, it's 10 after 10, and so let's go ahead and take our morning break at this time. Let's take 20 minutes, please. Keep all of my admonitions in mind. They all apply during the break, and I'll see you back here at 10:30. Like that the jury has left the courtroom now. Everyone may be seated. Let's go on break. I'll see everyone back here at 10:30. Thank you. The court will be in recess.